Hey everyone, in this video, we're going to take a quick look at the brand new BMW iX3. So a brand new era for BMW, let's get into it. All right, so let's have a look at some key details first. So it's the first production BMW on the brand new Neue class of platforms. So brand new technology, new design language as well, and not only for its electric cars, but also its combustion engine cars as well. It's got a brand new iteration of iDrive panoramic system. So rather than having your traditional setup where your iDrive central controller and a regular size screen, now you've got a screen that sits in between the driver and the passenger as well. But then you've also got a little eyebrow display, which we'll get into, that sits below the windshield. It's got a new Heart of Joy central computer unit, so that combines the drivetrain and driving dynamics functions all into one computer. It's meant to be 10 times faster than the previous system as well. This one really is quite incredible to me if it gets close to this claimed range. So 805 kilometers of range on the WLTP cycle. So compared to the previous generation, which was in the high 400s, this is a huge difference. Yeah, it's going to be a big change for BMW, and it's going to be something that could be a game changer for the industry as well. If you have rapid charging capabilities, it supports up to 400 kilowatts here and up to 372 kilometers of driving range in just 10 minutes of charge. You've got 345 kilowatts in the iX3 50 xDrive and accelerates from 0 to 100 in under 5 seconds, which would have been unheard of for a heavy electric SUV just maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So let's first have a look at the front here. So it's a brand new front fascia for BMW. Move away from the massive grills that we've had on the likes of the BMW 7 Series, the 4 Series, the XM, which will be much appreciated by a lot of the BMW aficionados and even regular buyers in the Western markets. BMW have said that the more Asian markets, such as the Chinese, appreciate the bigger grills. So we might see some customization still there moving forward just for the Chinese and some of the Asian markets. But I think for most people, this is a nice return to form for BMW in terms of heralding some of the characteristics of their past vehicles. So here it's one central unit here, which houses all of the sensors and basically anything they need to do for active safety. The lights here have that two light LED signature, which personally I feel like the angel eyes could still be used for the new generations, but they've gone in a different direction here, which look is not as iconic in terms of what BMW is known for, but potentially they're trying to create a new identity here as well. Below here, you've got the bumper, which it's got some interesting shapes going on here. I think it's a little bit toned down from the current generation of vehicles, which I like. And I think it generally fits quite well in terms of the overall kind of aesthetic. So if you look a little bit closer at the front view here, you can see how the shape of the grills, they're a little bit interesting. They're not exactly an oval shape or more organic like we used to see with previous BMW generations, which I would like to see them simplified a little bit, but look, it's still pretty nice and potentially could be shortened as well, these grills, so that they're in line with this whole lighting unit. But look, I think it's a market improvement over the current generation of vehicles for sure. We move on to the side profile, which I really love. I think this is the best aspect of the new exterior design. I love these wheels as well. They're still quite aerodynamic, but they're quite classy. But I really love how they've simplified the side profile without looking like it's too slab-sided. I think with the current iX, you've got that issue with some of the surfacing where it looks a bit too flat, and the way the light is with the body sometimes creates some strange reflections. But here it's a very strong profile. You've got the Hofmeister kink here still in play, very strong shoulders as well. I think with the rear end, if we move on to the rear end now, here, so this I think is a little bit generic for mine. Look, they've still got that L light signature BMWs are known for, and at least they haven't gone full light bar like pretty much every other new vehicle that's coming out. But I feel like it really lacks a little bit of BMW identity here. I think a more pronounced L shape would be nicer. It even looks a little bit like a Lincoln as well. But look, it's still a nice looking car, I think, overall, and I love this color too. I think this is going to be great for BMW, and I believe that the next vehicle in the Neuro class that will be revealed will be the next generation 3 Series or i3 as well. And from the initial concepts, it looks like it's going to be something that's quite handsome too. Let's move on to the interior now. So these are going to be some big changes for BMW here. We've gotten rid of the central iDrive controller here. It's now full touchscreen set up in this hexagonal is a one, two, three, four, five, six-sided display, which is interesting. I think they've tried to make this quite driver focused as well. I don't mind it, to be honest. It looks a little bit more designed than basically just a monitor tacked on here. So I don't mind this at all. I think this is the real new innovation that BMW have introduced, and we've seen some other manufacturers dabble with this as well. We've seen some cars in China, for example, the Xiaomi's introduced this sort of eye line display here. I think it remains to be seen how useful this is, but I guess it's meant to be like a heads-up display, although I believe there's also a traditional heads-up display too. So all the key information can be placed up here, dragged up here from the main display, whereas all of the things you need to interact with on a day-to-day, like air conditioning, settings, etc., can be controlled through this main screen here. Overall, I like the design. I would like a little more buttons, of course, as well, but I still think it's quite nice in terms of how they've designed it, and it looks quite integrated compared to some other vehicles that have bigger screens these days. As well, here's a front view of it. This new steering wheel, I believe there's a couple of choices. I'm not the biggest fan of this four-spoke design. I can see why they've done it, I guess for symmetrical purposes as well, but also because the kind of general speedo and information that's usually displayed behind the steering wheel is now moved up above, so you don't need to have a gap here. But sometimes you don't need to fill every gap. I think you can simplify as well. So I prefer this would be a three-spoke design. These controls are unfortunately all haptic touch sensitive, so we'll have to see how well they work in practice. A lot of brands are moving away from this. I think Volkswagen, Mercedes as well have actually moved to more traditional buttons. So it's interesting that BMW have continued down this path, but they're trying to make it quite futuristic and keep that same aesthetic throughout the whole interior. I guess that's their thinking at this point of time. I love this ambient lighting. It doesn't really look too in your face like some other models that we've seen. It's quite nicely integrated with the fabric and material that's used here. So overall, it's a nice, airy, and comfortable looking interior, which I like. Looks like there's plenty of room as well in the back, and we've got here the rear seats too. Looks like there's some decent amount of rear legroom as well, which looks quite good. So overall, I think the interior looks quite good. Now let's compare to the concept that it originally came from. So this is the Neue Class X concept. And I have to say, they remained quite faithful to the previous design. I think mostly only the real things they've changed are the door handles here to be production ready. The lights are very similar. I think they've simplified a little bit of the lighting here, especially down in the central section here. But generally speaking, I think it's quite faithful to the original design. And proportionally, sometimes the proportions often get lost from concept to production. So here, I think they've nailed it, which is fantastic. In terms of the interior, again, I think they've done an incredible job. This again looks super futuristic, and they've been very faithful to this when they brought it into production as well. So I think you can't fault BMW here for staying true to their vision. But yeah, we'll have to see how well it works in practice. It's okay for something to look nice, but does actually function well, as well as previous iterations too. Now, compared to the previous generation iX3, which was just based on the combustion engine X3, you can see this clean sheet design, electric from the ground up platform has really paid dividends in terms of design. It looks not just one generation ahead, but perhaps two or three generations ahead. Interior as well, I think, look, this was a classic BMW interior, plenty of buttons, ergonomically near perfect. So I'm not going to say that the new interior is necessarily better. It just definitely looks newer and more modern, but this was probably for me peak BMW in terms of the modern era for interiors. In terms of the other electric SUV they've had, so the BMW iX is the LCI, which I think has improved the design a little bit, made it a little bit cleaner. But with the side profile, this was very slab-sided and didn't really have much definition, whereas I think they've really put thought into how they can make the new generation iX really strong and evoke the BMW heritage. So I think it's a big improvement there. I still think this is probably the best modern BMW interior in terms of design. So obviously the iX is positioned above the iX3, so you can't really say that the iX3 can really compete in terms of that pure luxury level. But I think they've taken some elements from here and brought it into the iX3 and brought in a more accessible package to people that can afford it as well. And then finally, let's have a look at the Neue Klasse design language and where it came from. So here we've got the original New Klasse or Neue Klasse, which back then BMW were really struggling financially, so they had to bring out a new line of cars and sedans, and this was the 1500, the first Neue Klasse model. And you can see that similar thin grille section in the middle, and then the full length section here, which now we don't need this many vents, but we've got just lighting replacing this section. So I think they've done a good job translating this into the modern era. And you can see the various forms in the beautiful BMW E9 with sharp nose front end. Just love the car, one of the best looking BMW cars in my opinion. The classic, much revered BMW 2002 as well. Then you've got the legendary E30 3 Series 2, which they moved away to a little bit of a wider central section for the grille, but still was true to that era. So can definitely see what BMW is doing here. I think if it was me, I would probably want to introduce this two circular lights as that BMW signature angel eye look back, and I think that will really complete the new design language here instead of the lightning bolt. But overall, I think this is a great new style for BMW, and I'm keen to see the new models that get released as well.